After the first day of school, Nora, her husband Patrick, and their youngest daughter, Dominica, were returning home. Patrick had suggested that they take a different road, but her daughter wanted to walk down the main street that day, so much that her father had to agree in the end. When they had already walked halfway, a little girl ran out of the gate of one of the houses and clung tightly to Patrick's legs. "Daddy!" squealed the girl joyfully. "It's my daddy, not yours," attacked her Dominica, trying to pull the other girl away from her father's legs. But the girl wouldn't budge, clinging to Patrick and persistently calling him father. The man blushed and shamefully lowered his eyes, and at that time a young woman was standing near the gate of the house and contemptuously watching this picture. Nora immediately recognized her. It was their eldest daughter's music teacher. At home, Nora questioned her husband, and Patrick did not try to deny anything and admitted that this girl was his daughter, and all this time he lived in two families, not daring to leave Nora because they had two children. Nora listened to his explanations in a complete daze and could not believe that all this was happening to her. It was only much later that her emotions finally came out, and the woman burst into tears. For many years, Nora had been accustomed that her husband was coming home late from work and often went on business trips. Patrick's position was responsible. The man was fully engrossed in work and paid little attention to his wife and daughters. But Nora always explained this by the fact that her husband had to work hard to adequately support his wife and children. At the same time, Nora had nothing to blame for. She had always been an exemplary housewife, and even though she did not work, she spent all her time taking care of the children, the house and the garden. Going over the events of family life in her mind, Nora suddenly remembered how one day Patrick told her that he did not recognize her as the cheerful and mischievous girl he had once married. Nora was just recovering from a difficult pregnancy, and her husband's rebuke hurt her heart. Later, Patrick reproached her many times that because of the house and garden, they could not go on vacation or to the movies or even to the park together. But Nora really had no time. The house was big. There were many things to take care of. Despite the cheating, Nora did not want to part with Patrick, even though she understood that her life would not be the same as before. She did not force her husband out, but nevertheless, Patrick left on his own. 6 months passed, and Nora finally came to her senses and realized that she had to move on with her life. For the first time, she took a close look at herself in the mirror and realized how bad her appearance had become. And then she was determined to pull herself together, at least for her children. Nora got a nice haircut and changed her hair color. Her face immediately looked younger, and the woman smiled contentedly. "Well, that's a different story. Everything is not so bad as it seems," she thought happily. Encouraged by her new image, Nora found her law degree and got a job at the personnel department of the local hospital. Communicating with people inspired Nora, and she happily rushed to work to enjoy the social life she had missed for so many years. Wanting to support her mother in her difficult time, her daughters took over most of the household chores, and Nora had more spare time. This brought her much closer to her daughters. Soon, Nora began to catch admiring glances from men, which greatly increased her self-esteem. But she was in no hurry to reconnect her life with a man. Perhaps she would have resisted for a long time, but everything was decided by chance. On the last day of school, Dominica was coming home from school, walking carelessly along the sidewalk, and did not immediately notice a guy on a scooter rushing at her with great speed. The girl woke up in the hospital with a broken arm and concussion. Nora received a phone call and immediately rushed to the hospital and stayed on duty by her daughter. And in the evening, a stranger, who introduced himself as Walter, came into the ward. As it turned out, he was the one who, after seeing what had happened, caught up with the guy who tried to flee the scene, called the police and ambulance. The man was obviously very concerned about the child. Nora warmly thanked him for his participation, but Walter only waved her off modestly. "How could I not stop when I was passing by? The main thing is that the girl is now all right." On the day of discharge, Walter picked up Dominica and Nora and drove them home. On their way, they bought a cake and invited Walter to have tea with them. He did not refuse them, just as he accepted their offer to be their guest from time to time. Walter had had 2 unsuccessful marriages and no children of his own, but he was not discouraged, believing that all these failures were only a preface to the happy 3rd attempt. The girls became attached to the caring Walter, and Nora could not imagine her life without him. However, she refused to register their relationship officially. But one morning, the woman suddenly felt nauseous and dizzy and realized everything. Walter was stunned by the news of his impending paternity, and the question of marriage settled itself. Walter surrounded Nora with tenderness and love, fulfilling her every wish, protecting her from anything that might disturb his beloved. Soon they had a son. The girls adored their little brother and were ready to spend hours with him. A few months later, the eldest of Nora's daughters graduated from high school, and her father came to congratulate her. By that time, he was already living in another city. His new wife had insisted because she was afraid of the proximity to her husband's first family. Patrick was invited to the house for a family party. He looked at the glowing with love Nora, his daughters and charming baby boy, and realized with envy that his ex-wife was happy, but unfortunately not with him.